of our nation and its development. Joining me in the studio is Rakshita. Hi there, Rakshita.
Hi.
And we are going to have very special guests joining us live from across the country. In fact, Ricky Cage, Grammy Awards winner, multiple Grammy Awards winner, is with us. You can see him. And then we have Miss Aruna Rajesh. She's a filmmaker, Rakshita.
Yes.
And, I'm a science graduate, engineering graduate, and I'm excited about this program. In a bit, we should announce, friends, we would be joined in by the principal scientific advisor to the government of India, Professor Ajay Sood. He's someone who's a noted scientist, a well-acclaimed scientist in his own right, and he would be joining us, and then we will have a freewheeling conversation. Your thoughts, Rakshita, on science?
Well, you said you were a science student. I was a humanities student in, if you call it, about senior school. But yes, there was a time in primary school when I wanted to be a scientist. And I was, I think, very much influenced by Dr. Abdul Kalam, who was the president. And, was so enticed by his stories. But we understand as you grow that it's not an easy thing. And today, actually, we're going to learn that how, science can become something that is accessible, understandable very easily to everybody across generations in India. It reaches everybody because India's contribution to science has been, massive since the ancient times. And since you talked about, you mentioned about Dr. C.V. Raman, who we are celebrating today, he said the joy of scientific discovery comes not from finding answers, but from asking the right questions. That's the job we also do as journalists. And that's what we are going to do today.
And in science, it's actually, if you hit the nail on its head, in science, it's about asking the questions. Because once you are curious, you ask questions, as they say, nature really conspires to take you in the right direction. Ricky, everyone knows you as a musician, but you are also a UN climate change ambassador. You are an environmentalist. What are your thoughts for this program that we're having? Remember, Republic's philosophy of nation first, and doing anything which galvanizes everyone in society in the direction of making India a developed nation is that nation first philosophy. And this program is part of that.
Absolutely. And I'm in complete alignment with that philosophy, 100%. And, I think having this National Science Day is really important simply because, we have gotten accustomed to thinking that, that the human species, we progress automatically, We always feel that, okay, now we've got electric cars which have got a range of, let's say, 400 kilometers to a charge. In 10 years, we'll have electric cars which have 800 kilometers to a range, or our cell phones currently have 2K resolution screens, and in a couple of years, it's going to become 4K. Now, what we have to constantly remind ourselves is that this does not happen automatically, this progress. It takes the scientific community a lot of hard work and a lot of pain to actually bring in this progress. And we need to constantly celebrate our science community because we take them completely for granted that, progress happens automatically over the years. But it is the scientific community that actually brings in, our progress. And for me, I'm a creative person. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. And I believe that science and art is one and the same simply because to have that solution finding mindset, one has to have the most highest form of creativity in their mindset to actually bring about solutions and to find solutions to the problems of today. So I think it's a beautiful day today, and I think our scientific community absolutely needs to be celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Scientific community, all our achievements in science, and of course, whatever the youth can take out of this conversation, any inspiration they can, and focus on sciences, because that's where humanity's growth essentially comes from. Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, we also have Miss Aruna Rajesh Patil, who is a film director and editor. So now, why have we got a filmmaker here? Is because we have to understand how science, movies, how cinema is the most powerful medium, in fact, today, in today's time, has been for decades, of course, ma'am. But how do you feel about science, the way it has been portrayed on the big screen, or the small screen, the way popular media has been used? You think that it has done justice? We've had a couple of movies. We were just discussing, I was just discussing with, Abhishek about the movies where we've seen scientists, like about Nambi Narayan and Mission Mangal. And if you go back to more mainstream mainstream movies. We have Hrithik Roshan, playing Krish, or even, Koi Mil Gaya. Very, fun characters, entertaining movies.
Those are your generation. My generation is Mr. India.
Oh, yeah, of course. No. So, yes, they have connected with the viewers a lot more and giving that entertainment dose as well. But you feel that that has done justice or could be more?
Well, I'm sorry to say Indian cinema has really not done justice to science or scientists, and they've been in the background. But another reason why I'm loving being on this show is, my father was a freedom fighter and was always nation first. So it gives me extra joy to be on this show, on this channel, because it's about nation first. Having said that, I was also a science student. I was a medical student, and I left medicine after first MBBS to join movies. Now, landing up in movies, as a creative person, it's very important to understand the whys and wherefores and the work that goes on behind. Now, you see, the scientists and the scientific work is all invisible because it does not reach the people. It does not reach the common man. I mean, a lot of good things have come out of it, and they're constantly using all the applications in terms of technology. But there is a huge, huge gap. Now, if you look at Hollywood films, they've done very well because we've had lots of great films which have connected us to the new innovations, all discovery of how things work, how people involved, what they go through. All of that makes very interesting viewing. But if I have to say something about Indian cinema, especially Bollywood, you see, it's very business-driven, very box office-driven, and they keep using formula to kind of reach the people. And they cater to the lowest common denominator. And that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And then they keep saying that ye to public ka taste hai. Public is asking for. I keep asking them, when did the public tell you they want to watch crap or watch the lowest common denominator? No, people do watch films, do watch good films, and films with a lot of interesting concepts, interesting topics.
Right.
But we have to make films for them. Otherwise, it's a sad story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, while we talk of a lot of fantastic and legacy and heritage of which we are proud of when we talk about ancient India, for example, but not many times, Ricky, it's discussed that in the field of sciences, from Charaka to Shushruta to Aryabhata, other scientists of those times, Vara Meher, Brahmagupta, the kind of scientific achievements that were made in ancient India. Some of those, discoveries, insofar as the Western civilization is concerned, happened just about 5 or 6 centuries ago. We are talking about at least 2 millennia and more, and in the case of West, it's just about 500, 600, maximum 700 years back. So we should be proud of our achievements and draw inspiration from them so that in whatever manner we have lagged behind in the last couple of centuries, and a good reason for that is obviously because we had lost our sovereignty, we can draw inspiration from earlier achievements and then march forward.
Absolutely agree with you. Now, the thing is that, in India, we've gotten accustomed to celebrating, what I would call wrong heroes, because when it comes to a science community, as I said earlier, we are taking our scientific community completely for granted when, they are the ones who bring in progress. And we not only need to celebrate our scientific heroes, but we also need to ensure that, we communicate these heroes well enough so that they inspire a new generation to follow in their footsteps. So I think that is going to be really important. We need to create a new generation of innovators, people who, young Indians who think for themselves and, not only take India forward, but, take the whole world forward along with them. So I believe that this can only happen because you brought up cinema earlier. This can happen through celebrating our heroes, through the medium of music, through the medium of art, through the medium of cinema, and through documentaries, and thus inspiring a new generation to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, Ricky, I'm told the principal scientific advisor is joining us in about 5-7 minutes, and we'll take the conversation forward. But just before that, you're a musician, but I was reading, C.V. Raman, for example, India's first Nobel laureate, in whose memory we are marking this National Science Day. apart from his interest in, the spectrum physics, he was also interested in acoustics. So he did a lot of research on the string instruments like sitar and violin and even mridangam and tabla. And, it's anecdotal that a scientist in London told him, are you going to fiddle your way into the membership of Royal Society of Physics? You are a musician. Do you see that subtle engagement with science whenever you are in that zone, when you are, playing with the notes?
Absolutely, because, that you named C.V. Raman, but also Dr. Raja Ramana Rao, he was a pianist and a brilliant, brilliant pianist. And then you had Albert Einstein, a brilliant violin player. So a lot of scientists had taken up musical instruments and were really, really good at the musical instrument that they had taken up. And, I've always believed that scientists are the best people to figure out, the problems of today and to figure out solutions to those problems. And I think artists and scientists need to constantly communicate with each other and collaborate so that when the scientists come up with solutions to problems and come up with even finding out what the problems that we face are and ask the right questions, as you said earlier, I think it is important for artists to collaborate with them to communicate those problems to the general public.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you showcase a whole lot of scientific data to people, it will not bring about behavioral change. It will not change mindsets of people. It will not bring about positive transformation. But if you speak to people emotionally through the emotional language of arts and music and film and cinema, then what happens is that is what can bring about behavioral change. That is what can bring about societal change and even changing the mindsets of world leaders.
Yeah.
So I believe this collaboration between scientists and artists is extremely important because the scientists come up with what the problems are and the solutions, and the artists communicate that problem in an emotional way so that they're hitting the hearts and souls of people and inspiring change.
Absolutely. In fact, I am a firm believer of this thought that whatever problems we face at societal level, at the national level, science and math, they really come together by way of engineering, by way of innovation, by way of research and development, and that's when we find those solutions, this year's theme for National Science Day, as I see it, is empowering Indian youth for global leadership in science and innovation for Viksit Bharat. While as a media platform, we are discussing, Rakshita, perception. You wanted to become a scientist but chose humanities. But it's not difficult to make that transition. For example, Jack Ma, he was a teacher of English. He had nothing to do with science and technology, and he became a techpreneur and a tycoon, business tycoon, billionaire by getting into online and engineering and technology, essentially. So it's about self-learning, self-educating, and that's where mass media can play some role in terms of creating that ecosystem, in terms of creating that perception that, yes, if you get into this, you can find solutions. I have a different question for you, Ms. Patil. You said that maybe Bollywood has not really delivered as much as it should have, and you're a little disappointed. But we live in times of streaming. And, with streaming, you can actually produce good quality content on much lower budgets and scale at which Bollywood works. So I think that should not be an issue. You can really reach the intended target, the youth in schools, colleges, universities, villages, districts, Mofussil India, and really communicate on science.
Let me say something here. There is an issue. Look at the OTT platforms. People thought, look, this is indie cinema. We don't have to depend on box office. We can make whatever we want. But what are these channels asking for? Sex and violence. So that is a real problem. And even if you make a lot of documentaries and small films and short films, they're not really reaching people. So as Ricky said, if there's emotion, and emotion will come when you tell stories. And stories are your best bet, in a way, to actually reach people with all kinds of expression. So I think this is something that something needs to be done beyond the market force. The market force is only pushing that kind of stuff, unfortunately. Because I've been in this business for more than 50 years, and I'm telling you, it's not very simple, not very easy. And even though I have my last weeks on Netflix and all that, but that's not easy. The thing we can do is use social media, use the right kind of brand ambassadors, and make sure you're able to make certain, feature films, story films, and promote them, distribute them, stream them. Now, I'm really hopeful that the government has got their own streaming platform. Maybe that's also going to be a very useful tool.
We'll ask the principal scientific advisor. You know, he's joining us in just a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. That's what Aditi tells me. And I will ask this question that the suggestion that you made. You know, maybe the government can help, because the government is okay. Fine. We have Professor Ajay Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Very good afternoon to you, sir, and thanks for joining this broadcast.
Thank you, and sorry for a few minutes late, but it's a pleasure to join, and I think it's a very interesting panel discussion you have planned on an important day, National Science Day, with a very good theme, public perception of science shaping societal development. I think we need to bring seemingly two sides together. Actually, there are no two sides. It is the same side. And I think the platforms like this, when we are discussing, we need to see how do we really bridge the divide between societal perception of science and the scientists who are doing this, or the technologists. We don't really need a difference here.
Yeah. So you see, you know, perception, intuition, questioning, observation, science brings all of them together. So there's very interesting anecdote about Jagdish Chandra Bose. One of his first experiments, he proved that plants have life. I mean, we as a civilization have known it for millennia that plants have life. My grandmother would tell me, don't touch the plants in the evening, they're sleeping, because obviously the sentiment was that they have life. And Professor Sood, Jagdish Bose proved scientifically to the Westerners that plants have life. This is how you do it. He put a plant in bromide and he created ECG of sorts, which showed that the plant was having palpitations and then ultimately died. So, I mean, for the youngsters to be able to question, to be able to observe, and for us to nurture that ecosystem where they can confidently question and observe is the crux of it.
Absolutely. Actually, Professor Jagdish Chandra Bose not only just hypothesized, he proved it. See, in science, what is most important is whatever you say, it has to stand the test of all your experimentation and so on. He did that. And the beauty was, I don't know if you have seen those instruments, they're extraordinarily sensitive, made at a time when technology was not what it is today. So it's really ingenuity of Dr. Jagdish Chandra Bose that he could devise that. So this is where you need to not only just make a statement, you need to really see the scientific ways to do it. And this is something true more than ever when the false news or the fake news can make their way much, much more than what it was earlier. So we really need the scientific methods to inculcate in our discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, Professor Sood, since we are calling this a town hall, we will open the phone lines and have some callers, youngsters calling you and asking you and Ricky and Ms. Patil some questions. So hopefully we'll have an engaging conversation. But just before you joined, Ms. Patil was making a point that maybe the government needs to fill a gap, which is that Bollywood is, guided, mass media essentially is guided by its commercial interests. And so maybe the kind of focus that's needed really for science education and mass outreach, that's where the government has to really perhaps play a little greater role. I mean, you think government is doing something about it, concerned about it, involved in this?
I'll just give you a very, simplistic answer on this from what point we are doing in my office. So in that, we have a platform called Manthan. So in that, actually, we have a section on, connecting with the public. And there actually, on the OTT platform, some short videos have been made are there on the commercial OTT platform, which are highlighting our startups. Very, very interesting startups. 3 minutes videos were made and they are really very popular. So what I'm saying is you have to use all the media along with the corporate sector, CSR funds and so on. And government is absolutely committed to popularize science and make science as a way of life. Actually, the recent thing which you saw by Honorable Prime Minister in this Mann Ki Baat,
yes,
you saw that he has proposed an extraordinary, innovative thing where one day as a scientist.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fascinating thing where people will have the first-hand feel what it means to be a scientist. You don't need to write essays on it, but really you can spend a day in a lab or in any technology or anything related, but even in the movie making on science, actually, what all you may say. But I think the concepts are very, very, I would say, disruptive thing in some ways we need to do to really break this glass ceiling between science and science communication to the society.
Absolutely.
Because whatever you may say, we are using taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
Right, we have callers coming in on this show. I think Muralidharan from Chennai has joined us. Thanks so much, Mr. Muralidharan, and please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Abhishek, this is Muralidharan from Chennai. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Murali.
Good.
The question is for whom?
This is for anybody. It's a generic one. I would like to trigger a question. If you see India as our country, there are still a lot of lands which is not being tapped for agriculture. The simple reason is it is not irrigated. I'm going back to one of the oldest dream of India, unification of all the rivers, so that each part of the land is get irrigated properly, so that our agriculture can bundle it into a bigger level.
Right.
And it will also can give an internal waterway system.
Right. You know, Murali,
solutions I'm looking from the panel.
Yeah. I got a question. Murali. Fantastic question. In fact, I can tell you, because as a journalist, I've been, focused on this issue for at least a decade and a half since the interlinking of rivers has been talked about. It's been happening, in fact, already. But I would let Professor Ajay Sood speak on it, Murali, for your greater satisfaction on this question. Professor Sood, as I mentioned, a lot of work already happening on interlinking of rivers. Murali thinks there is a lot more scope for that.
I think I'll take the original point which Murali made about this uncultivable land which is lying there and what are we doing about it. Actually, it's a very, very important aspect. So recently, we have been doing the right, we have the discussions. Can we use that land for energy crops so that we can have the green hydrogen production from the bio route?
Right.
So this is something which we have taken forward in the green hydrogen mission discussions, and we have tied up with a few ministries who have this land, like Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Ports, and so on. They have this land which is not cultivable in that sense because of the food crops, but the energy crops can be grown. So this large land which Mr. Murali mentioned is something which we need to do, and India has committed that it will be utilizing that land.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you mentioned green hydrogen, in fact, we have pictures from earlier in the day, Professor Sood, in fact, where you were having the lunch with the European Union commissioners hosted by the Prime Minister. All these EU commissioners came to that venue at Hyderabad House in a green hydrogen bus. That's an innovation, I think, and everyone there was impressed. I have put in those pictures. Maybe we can show some of them. But till we get the next caller, that was an important question by Murali. And if I could take it forward, again, continuing with Professor Sood, are we doing enough in terms of directing our human resources in the direction of science and tech studies?
Yeah, actually, this is something which we need to do continuously. It's not a one-time effort. Various programs are being launched, and you know that we have the Anusandhan National Research Foundation, a new vehicle to support the research R&D. So I'm saying this is a continuous effort, but what we need to do more, and I think through this discussion, if I can put across this point, how can we enhance the participation of a business sector, the private sector in R&D?
Yeah.
So this, I think we have to face it because it's about 30 to 35% from in our total GERD. And as compared to other countries, it is much, much less.
Okay.
So my appeal is whatever government is doing, it will do, and it will do more. As you know, many missions have been launched in the last few years. But somehow we have impressed upon our, the business community and all others to see that STEM research, STEM education, all that is really a part of the society taking it up and not only the government. That's my very limited take.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm, Professor Sood, going through numbers of STEM graduates and just doing a comparison. Kritarth from our research team has sent these numbers, and very interesting that while we're doing fantastic, if you look at a comparative figure, so China has 36 lakh science or STEM graduates, as they call science, technology, engineering, math, medicine, Rakshita. 36 lakhs every year graduating in STEM subjects. In the case of India, it's about 25 lakhs, so way behind China, but still much ahead of other nations. United States just managed about 8 lakh science technology graduates, Russia just about 5 lakhs. So it's not that we are doing bad, Professor Sood, it's just that maybe we need to push further if we have to really make it cutting edge.
No, absolutely. I think you said it. We need to increase what you call full-time equivalent of the scientists or the people in STEM per million, or whatever the denominator you want to use. We need to increase that. So what does it mean in practice if you think about it? It means we have to take research and development across the country in all universities and colleges. It cannot be done only in the selected universities and selected institutes.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
We just cannot be isolating R&D ecosystem in few national labs and some top institutes. We have to go to if I don't, for want of a better word, I can use tier 2 and tier 3 cities and universities. We need to do that.
Right.
It cannot be limited only to few institutes or few tens of institutes in the country.
Yeah.
And the efforts are being made, in fact, to do that.
Right. I have a question for Ricky, but before I go to Ricky, Rakshita, in fact, wants to get Ms. Patil back in the conversation. Rakshita wanted to be a scientist, and she's wondering if women's participation in science is good.
Absolutely, in fact, because we were talking about STEM, and Ms. Patil, women now constitute 43% enrollment in STEM streams at the higher educational level. And in fact, we've seen women scientists leading, in projects like Chandrayaan, in Aditya L1 mission as well. So how do you feel, or what do you have to say about women's contribution in science and women leaders in science per se?
Actually, it's a matter of pride when you see so many women. I mean, it was very heartwarming to see all these women scientists in the ISRO labs, and when the Chandrayaan was launched and all, it's brilliant. But you see, they're invisible. Unfortunately, what has happened is just not limited to science. It's all over that women have been kept in the background. I mean, And I'll tell you, Gina Davis did a studies, and if you talked about STEM scientists, now when you show a film, you show a character who's a judge, you don't show a woman. You show a scientist, you show a doctor, you don't show a woman. So women would have much less speaking roles, much things to do, and not roles of much importance. So this is how cinema has been used just to promote, and mostly with women, it's been hypersexuality and objectification. So unless we change that thing as well, so unless science comes into the mainstream and representing with equal representation of women, it's not going to happen. Now you'll say, how do we get into mainstream? Now look at something very small like Instagram. Now people are posting all kinds of stuff. Why can't we have some science stuff coming on Instagram? That can be taken on. Then we have brand ambassadors. We have very, major celebrity stars and things like that. Now they're selling anything from gutka to anything else. You think, are they credible? They're not credible. So find people with credibility to promote science, to promote the scientific growth, technology, education, whatever. But, just having a celebrity star, it just doesn't work.
Right.
So there are many ways. I'll add one or two things if you don't mind.
Quickly.
Like have festivals, have lots of science festivals in every city. Have colleges, have science appreciation, film appreciation like we have in colleges. I mean, there is a huge lot you can do, but unless you get into mainstream, so to say, really use all the media outreach.
I can tell you, Ms. Patil, that we sometimes underestimate the kind of curiosity-driven scientific inquiry that happens across the country, even in small-town India, even in villages. I remember a story doing 15, 17 years back, traveled to a village, a farmer had a telescope and he was, taking kids in the night for night sky watching, and he was marking those planets, etc. And that was 15, 17 years ago in a tribal outback in Gujarat. So I mean, it's not that the spirit of scientific inquiry is not there, but still, the point taken. What you're saying is that maybe more needs to be done. Ricky, you have studied science before you took to music. I studied science before I took to journalism. Professor Sood was talking about breaking that ceiling or a wall that exists between science and science communication. People like you and me are examples of how we can communicate better perhaps than someone who's coming from an arts background. You think, picking up from where Ms. Patil left, there should be more programs of this kind, more outreach, more science museums in small town India, so that just students, people just shouldn't come and play, tinker around. The government, of course, does a lot. For example, we know of Atal Tinkering Labs, but at a mass level, in the private domain.
Definitely, actually. And as I said earlier, that we need to create new heroes, and these heroes need to be from the science community. I think that's going to be really important, because right now we are just not celebrating our scientific community as much as we should, because progress of our nation, progress of our world, progress of our species completely actually is on the shoulders of the science community and the people who actually innovate and take us forward. But we are just not celebrating them enough. And we need to use every medium at our disposal to try to celebrate these heroes, so that, as as was mentioned, as Ms. Patil mentioned, that the heroes that we are currently celebrating, the ones who are promoting gutka brands and who are objectifying women and who are creating content which is actually not good for our children, they are not the ones who are celebrated, but the ones who are actually taking the human species forward and taking our nation forward, they are the ones who are actually celebrated. Because the issue is that these are people who are actually doing all the hard work to take us forward, to take the nation forward, and to take our species forward, but they're not very good at communicating what they're doing. And that's the reason why we need to work hard and help them to communicate what they need to communicate, and thus make heroes out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a good point made. I'll go to Professor Ajay Sood on that, but before that, Rakshit, I believe we have a couple of more callers.
Yes, the caller lines are in, and of course, the Inquisition is incoming right now. Keshav Jha is joining us from Mumbai, and Sachin from Pune. Keshav, you go first.
मेरा सवाल जो है यही है कि अगर एनईपी अगर देखें हम, तो एनईपी में जो बाकी भाषाएं हिंदी के अलावा जो और रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस हैं, उनमें भी बात कही गई है कि जो स्टेम है वो उसमें भी पढ़ाए जाएंगे. तो क्या इससे ऐसे लोगों को फायदा होने वाला है, प्रेरित करने वाला है कि आप जिनको इंग्लिश नहीं आती या बाधा उत्पन्न होती है कि आप जो है वो रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस में हिंदी को इंक्लूड करके भी आप पढ़ाई कर सकते हैं स्टेम की.
Okay, good point. In fact, a lot of work has already happened on getting sciences in not just Hindi but regional languages also. But let's take the second question also, then we go to Professor.
Sachin from Pune is calling us. Please go ahead, Sachin.
Some bad audio there. Sachin, we are not getting, your audio is not clear.
I think we'll go ahead with Keshav's question to our panelists.
To Professor Sood.
Professor Sood, please, if you would like to answer that question.
Yeah, actually now it is very, very easy because of the AI. AI tools are there which can solve this problem without any issue, even if you do not have textbooks in your regional languages. Because now it has come to a stage with so many AI tools that this barrier has been removed, which was the case maybe 15 years back. It's not a barrier now. What we need to see is it should not be coming in the way of learning science, because many of us did in our mother tongue till 8th and so on. And then we took to English medium. So I'm just saying that it is very possible language should not in doing science or science communication. And science communication is really best done in regional languages, which has a huge outreach. So I'm completely up on this, that we must promote science in regional languages, but let's not be very dogmatic about it. We should see what needs to be done and appropriately take it up.
Right, Professor Sood. We also have another caller. Adil from Kalyan is calling in. Adil, I correct myself. Abid from Kalyan is joining in. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes,
Abid.
Please go ahead.
Yes, my question is, how can I become scientist when I grow up?
Ricky?
I study in 7th standard.
Ricky.
Yeah, even I'd like to become a scientist when I grow up. So, so I think Professor Sood will be able to answer that question.
Professor Sood.
No, actually, it's not very difficult. See, what is science? Science, actually, it's just that you have to have an open mind to question and really understand nature. If you look around your daily life, there is so much to learn from scientific perspective that you will become a scientist. There is no reason that you will not have a scientific bent of mind. There is no way. Only thing is you need to be open about it and don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Just inquire. And there is so much of knowledge now on the net if you do the right things. You can do it, connect to people, and as our Honorable Prime Minister said, one day as a scientist, maybe that's one thing, again, which would be a way to do it.
Right.
And my feeling is that if you have the intent, you will become a scientist. Let me say this.
Right.
You may not have a PhD degree tomorrow, but you will think like a scientist. And many of us, we just took it in our stride as we went along. And even if you don't earn your living by being a scientist, you can still lead the life of a scientist. I think that has to be appreciated. Scientist does not mean the typical movie style where you are mixing some acids and alkalis. Please don't think of that.
That was my impression of a scientist as a kid.
You have to be curious and bold.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Curious and bold. In fact, Professor Sood put it very well. You see, you have to have that spirit of being a scientist, that spirit of inquiry, that spirit of questioning and curiosity. Keep it alive. Abid, fantastic that you are watching this program and are fully getting involved. But on that note, unfortunately, we have also run out of time. I believe, Professor Sood, you want to make an announcement on what your office intends to do to take this science education further.
Yeah, so science education, I think there are two things. One is the one which we would like to release some document. I don't know if you mean that, but science education definitely is a very important item. and our office is working with all the relevant stakeholders to make sure that STEM science education becomes a part of our life. If I can have half a minute, can I make a suggestion?
Right.
Hello?
Yeah, please, Professor, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I have not, we have corporate social responsibility, CSR. It's a must, right? You have to spend 2% of your profit. And
okay.
Can we have ASR, academic social responsibility?
Right.
Because I think it should be on all people who are fortunate to do science or related things. They should invest in taking science to society. So I think we should make it a movement. I have a feeling if this catches up with our esteemed panelists, who are really the heroes of youth, I think we need to see that why not all people who have the privilege to do science or technology, why don't they really make it a mission?
Right.
To take it, and we call it ASR.
Professor
Somehow we can see what is the way to reward it or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But somehow it has to become a movement.
Absolutely. It has to become a movement, and it has to travel down to the last village and town of the country. Professor Sood, I don't know about the ASR, academic social responsibility, but I can tell you what we have done today for 1 hour is media social responsibility, and I hope we have done a commendable job.
Right.
Absolutely. This is the first time you have given such a prime time on this National Science Day. You really, really deserve our congratulations and all the compliments to make it happen.
Professor Sood.
May you be the leader. Yeah.
Yes.
So we would like to go to the last part for the release, I think, on the inclusivity document.
I think we've done that.
Coming up?
I think we've done that. We put it on air. You're talking about the self-assessment and report framework for inclusivity, the public consultation that you have announced.
Yeah.
All right. This is the one.
We would like to do it so that we really get a good, good sense of this inclusivity in the STEM circle. Thank you so much.
Hopefully, all those who are watching this would take note of this, Professor Sood. And I think we have to come to an end of this call.
Right. Professor Ajay Kumar Sood and Ricky Cage and Ms. Aruna Rajay Patel, thank you so much for this wonderful discussion on National Science Day. Really appreciate you all joining us and all the callers who joined us. Well, Abhishek, of course, it has taken me back to some of my own school days also. And as we, discussed that it is not just simply about, mixing some alkalis or acids, but it is beyond that, and how Ricky, via his music, he has sent out some powerful messages. We spoke about cinema and also about ASR, a very innovative idea. I think it's really enlightening, and everybody in this country, from the youth to those who are, in professionals and are working, they should be, connected with science and making the best use of it.
Absolutely, and hopefully we have played some role today in that. Thank you so much, friends, for joining us.